What's up, you guys? Today we are going to answer this question of, can I cook with olive oil? Can I cook with avocado oil? Can I cook with coconut oil? And kind of just address this whole seed oil topic out there. I know that there is so much content. There are so many different researchers and studies and all these different pieces that unless you listen to like 55 of them with different opinions, you're not going to be able to figure it out. My goal for this basically is to just really simplify everything as far as different seed oils and what that looks like, and answer the questions about olive oil and all that, and then kind of back into the general story of where this even came about, so we have a kind of a full circle understanding, so we don't have to try to remember things. We can just kind of logically iron it out, and then go into what exactly we should be cooking with, and so that next time you go to like the grocery store, you know exactly what to get, and you know exactly what not to get and why, and it's super simple and easy. Really understand history a bit better and how this plays into our reality today. What are actual seed oils? So let's just list them off. What are the products that are listed as seed oils to avoid? Okay, so the first one that we want to avoid is sunflower seed oil. Then there's rapeseed oil, which is also known as canola oil. There's soybean oils, there's rice bran oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, peanut oils, and corn oil. This all kind of falls into that group of seed oils, which is a subset of a category called vegetable oil. So even when you see something at the store that's like vegetable oil, even though it's not listed as like a safflower, sunflower kind of oil, don't get that. That's not what we want, okay? So just to put it really, really simply there. If you notice, I did not include avocado oil, coconut oil, or olive oil into seed oils. And the reason is because they are fruit. Yes, olives and avocados and coconut are fruit. These are actually not seed oils. Can you cook with olive oil? Can you cook with coconut oil? Can you cook with avocado oil? And the really simple answer to all of this is, if you are 100% carnivore and you're real strict about it, no, that's not the move. If though you are more like animal-based, meaning majority of what you eat is meat, and you do like to dabble in a little bit of fruits and stuff like that, then it's like a sometimes. So I want to explain a little bit more about that. The issue is product isn't necessarily 100% pure. In fact, it's looking like somewhere up to 70% of the product that, let's say for example, is olive oil, might actually be cut with other products like vegetable oils to make it more voluminous for the company then to be able to sell more. And so essentially what you're getting is what you think is olive oil, but it's actually more like vegetable oil, and 50-50, and so it contains a ton of linoleic acid in there, and you're not actually getting the benefits of olive oil that you might be getting anyways. So it's really kind of a risky thing with olive oil. You just got to make sure you're getting it from a really 100% pure place, and if you're gonna get it, you want to make sure that it's in like a darkened glass. So like the glass itself, you want it to be dark when it's in that, because otherwise it won't sit the same. It won't have the same effect on the body if you get it from like a clear glass where sun is able to penetrate it. So there's all these things. There's a thing called smoke point, and smoke point is basically the ability for the substances, like the heat threshold that the substance can withstand. Olive oil kind of has a really low smoke point, meaning it can't withstand a lot of heat. And so with higher heat that we cook it in, which a lot of times the things that we're cooking in get really freaking hot, obviously, it's going to cause problems. It's going to break down the olive oil basically, and it's going to potentially make it carcinogenic, which ultimately causes cancer. So there's that. Now, I'm not saying that olive oil in general is terrible. I think that if you're more animal based and if you realize that you can eat, olive oil, then have olive oil. It works for a lot of different societies. Like it's a big deal in Greece. It's a big deal in a lot of different countries. You just got to figure out what works for you. No, it is not carnivore, let's say, air quotes. The thing with avocado oil, well, there is a high potential basically that it's going to be kind of like laced with other products that's not avocado oil. So it's going to be laced with things that have a ton of linoleic acid in them, which is essentially defeating the value of having the avocado oil in the first place. This is a very common thing. It sucks. It is what it is though. It's actually a big problem. So coconut oil would be the best of the three, but even then it's still risky business. The safest route to go would be to not cook with any of them. Best way to go would be to cook with tallow, ghee, or raw butter, because of the smoke points with some of those oils, and then also because of the fact that they are often laced with things that we do not want and therefore cannot control, and therefore causes us problems. I actually learned way before I started doing animal-based or carnivore-based, cooking with olive oil is just not it. So I actually haven't been doing that for a very long time. That said, I am not one to promote that having any of those products is necessarily bad. You know, I do think that if we were to have a little bit of olive oil in our diet, it's probably not the worst thing, actually. I think it depends on the person. I think the same thing with avocado oil and coconuts. I love coconuts. I love avocados. I love olive oil, you know, and I think that it depends on the approach you're taking. I personally think to each his own, that if people want to try out these things in their lifestyle and they want to see if it works for them and if they feel good, 100% do it. You want to get organic stuff, you want to make sure it's pure and all that, but don't cook with it. You want to cook with tallow and ghee and raw butter. That's the way to go. And the first and foremost one that I recommend is tallow. If you guys need some, it can be hard to come across. Click the link below in the description. You get a discount on there. Hopefully that, you know, is helpful to some people. And this kind of goes into the story part of this. The way that seed oils came about, actually, around the 1870s, seed oils, the word that they were called was machine lubricant, literally. So companies found that when they took seeds and they flattened them and pressed them out and pressed all the oil out, that it was a really, really flipping good lubricant for machines. So that's why the seed oil was invented in the first place. It was actually 100% not for human consumption, in case you didn't already know that. It's been going around a bunch, I know that, but it was there for lubricating machines that were doing big, heavy jobs. There was an excess of seed oils out there in the market. So the people who created the seed oils were like, wow, okay, well, maybe we could put this in food since it is plants. Maybe we can just sell this and get people to kind of get rid of the excess, make some money, boom, boom, boom. As we know, this is how things go, right? How do we find money? And so basically around, I think it was about 1910, 1911, Crisco was kind of the first company out there that started trying to promote its product, aka seed oil, in the market. Well, this whole time, like before 1910, before 1911, people only cooked with animal fat. That was like kind of the staple, in the way that like now peanut butter is a staple for kids, like PB&Js and all that. It was like that back then, in that people just only cooked with animal fat. It was just kind of what you did. And so this attempt by Crisco around 1910 to get people to adopt cooking with their stuff was challenging. It was challenging. It wasn't something that everybody was really buying into. It really wasn't until about the 1950s that suddenly people had an interest in heart issues, because the president at the time ended up having a heart attack. So at this time then, there was a ton of research going on about how do heart issues come about? Why is this a thing? And the researchers that were kind of in this field were starting to really pay attention to cholesterol levels. And then there was another group of researchers that were really paying attention to sugar and its effect on the heart and the body function. So there were kind of two different groups, like I said, researching, is cholesterol the issue or is sugar the issue to create heart issues? And that was what was going around the 1950s. Again, the attention was there because the president at the time had this heart attack and people couldn't understand what was going on. Heart issues, like just they weren't a thing in the 1950s like they are now. It was a big thing. It was a big deal that happened. So at the time, there was all this research going on. Well, if you've seen my interview with Dr. Chafee, which I will attach here, this was a really interesting insight into how the research was kind of skewed into paying attention to just cholesterol. To just give you a little side note there, we know now that there were researchers paid off by the Sugar Association to pay more attention to cholesterol and essentially avoid the research that they were finding on sugar, okay? That was happening. Watch this video for a little bit more information on that from Dr. Chafee. But then simultaneously, Ancel Keys, this researcher as well, who he had his mindset on this concept that cholesterol was actually causing people to have heart problems. And he created this famous study out there called the 7-country study, where essentially he cherry picked the data, whether it was nefarious approach or just his own ego getting in the way. He basically was trying to prove that cholesterol was the problem for heart issues, rather than come up with a real study challenging whatever the data might show him. All of this is to say that around the 50s, this question of what's causing heart issues was a really big deal. Well, we do know that animal fat can raise certain people's LDL, which is their cholesterol, right? So that is a thing that happens. At the same time, because everybody culturally was eating animal fat to cook with, we know that, there was suddenly more attention being paid to, wow, maybe cholesterol is actually bad, because if cholesterol based off of all these researchers' information, is potentially causing heart problems, and our president just had a heart attack and we're all cooking with animal fat, maybe that's what we need to stop cooking with. So this is where then Crisco comes in and where the American Heart Association comes in. So there was a radio ad that came out by, I think it was Crisco, that partnered with the American Heart Association, and they partnered with them for American Heart Association to recommend Crisco as the best solution to cook with because it will help people with their heart health and all these things. So Crisco became an official partner of the American Heart Association, and they were put on a radio ad so the entire country could hear this recommendation and people could get all behind Crisco and getting away from using animal fats. So that's kind of where this whole thing started, right? So everybody in the country had this huge fear now of animal fats because, again, they raise LDL. We know that. We saw our president have a heart attack. It was totally out of the blue, like doesn't happen kind of a thing. And honestly, there was faulty data. There was faulty research. The Ansel Keys piece was coming out and skewing data. The Sugar Association was essentially paying off researchers to not show that their sugar was having an issue on heart health. And we move forward into the 50s, the 60s, 70s, where then it became a cultural change for people to start cooking with seed oils. So that's when we have canola oil, Crisco, like I said, that people are now cooking with. So all this to be said, I want to kind of circle back now to why seed oils are potentially damaging in the first place. So why is this even a thing? Well, humans, it's not necessarily that the seed oil itself is harmful. It's the amount of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, aka linoleic acid, that is in the actual seed oil itself. Humans have always had linoleic acid in our diet. It comes from a lot of different things. It actually comes from animals too. But the quantity of linoleic acid is the problem. So humans typically, as we've evolved, have what we found had about 2 to 3% linoleic acid in our diet on a regular basis. But seed oils just contain a lot more. They have a freaking lot more linoleic acid than what we're used to. So I was looking at some of this research, and it's coming out to find that humans are now on average having like somewhere between 10 and 22% linoleic acid in their diet today on average, whereas before they were having 2 to 3%. And so now the question is, okay, why does that matter? Why is it a thing? Well, the problem with linoleic acid is that it basically impairs the membrane of the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is like the energy source of cells. And it also basically like breaks the fat cells. So what this does, like how we kind of manifest that, how we interpret that once we eat it, is it makes us hungrier. It encourages more fat cells to evolve, and it makes people fatter, and then therefore it creates more chronic disease. All that is to say is when we have more linoleic acid, something that goes from like 2% to 20% in any way, shape, or form in a very quick increase, like we did from the 50s to the 60s, it just shot up because everybody started cooking with these seed oils. Suddenly that means that we have a sharp intake of linoleic acid, and it's causing our cell membranes to basically implode, and everybody's hungrier and getting fatter. So that's why that matters, right? Now, today, where we find seed oils, it's not just in the things that we're cooking with, but it's literally like in every processed food. Every single processed food. I actually spoke with a food scientist recently. I'm hoping to have him on pretty soon here, but he was talking about how even in Skittles, they use like, I think it's canola oil and various seed oils to make it stick together, to make it like glue and kind of a specific texture. So literally in everything, we're finding this product, which again wasn't a thing for humans to eat until the 50s. So it's like a shock to our system that maybe we haven't caught up to yet, and maybe it's not actually something that we should be catching up with because it's in excess. Again, we've gone from 2% to 20% potentially. So the way that this might manifest for you is that there might be issues in not being able to lose weight. For me, I know that I was constantly hungry all of the freaking time, and now I know that a lot of that has to do with, in my opinion, the seed oils and the linoleic acid that was in the food that I was eating, because now that I don't have it, I am full so much more of the time. It's like wild, so much more of the time, okay? And so then that also could be chronic disease. So like you might be having issues with chronic pain, you might have skin issues, you might have issues with eyesight. Apparently that's been a big thing in this. I'm not saying that removing seed oils is going to make your eyesight perfect. And so there's a lot of other ways that this can manifest, but it's subtle, low key things. This is not like you light a match and then this thing catches on fire. It's kind of like a slow burn is what we're seeing. But yeah, this is kind of the whole rundown of why seed oils matter, which ones to avoid, what to go for, what you can have, what you can't have. There's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to say, no, you shouldn't have olive oil ever, and yada, yada, yada. Well, you know what? It's a constant debate, okay? There is no one solid answer on this. This is the truth of health is right now, you go on one rabbit hole and you can be down that whole thing, that friggin' rabbit hole for the next 10 years. A lot of this is starting out carnivore, removing everything, just cooking with meat and tallow, and then maybe after 3 months, introducing little by little, maybe some olive oil and seeing how you do. Just one at a time. But at the very least, avoid all vegetable oils, avoid all seed oils, and hopefully that gets you to a better place, of being who you want to be, looking the way you want to look. I hope this helped you guys. I hope you got something out of this. I know it was a lot of info. Let me know your comments below. Let me know if you agree or disagree or have any thoughts or opinions on any of this. But ultimately, I do hope that this helps you guys. And hey, I just want to say I really do appreciate you guys. If you do like this content, please do subscribe and like it. I see that about 75% of the viewers of this are not subscribed. So if we could like and subscribe, that would be so amazing, because then we can get bigger guests on, and the bigger guests that we get on, the more information we can get about the truth of what's going on out there. And that's ultimately what we want. So I hope you guys like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.